Well, here I am back again, and we'll go to New York now. But I expect that Melissa is still waking up, so we'll. In the meantime, I have planned to go back in time and in space, and go to Guildford for a little while. Hang on. That's not what we meant to do. So you'll have to bear with me for a moment or two. And there we go. The look of concentration on my face is worthwhile waiting. So I'm going to play a little video now. I hope I'm going to anyway. We've had many interesting people. Work is the wrong word because we don't really work in this sense. We contribute. Let's put it that way. We contribute to the programs, and we've had many interesting people. And I hope that I've got one here who may well prove to be very interesting, and we stay in touch with them. And of course, my wonderful abilities with the technical side of things is such that and I haven't a clue what I've done with it. Let's see. No, I'm going to keep it for a future program. What I will do is I will talk you through. I will chat to you until such time as Melissa appears, and we can talk to her. She's much more interesting than I am, and we are in Mirador. Melissa has worked with Mirador for a number of years, and she continues to contribute and be part of it. And that's brought her to the UK a couple of times, and particularly to Lewis. And when she was here, because he was also a contributor, she got to know Stephen Catlin very well and became very fond of him. And she, like the rest of us, was devastated when Stephen passed away a month ago. And so she's very, very eager to see that we remember him as well as we can. And I yesterday, I explained to everybody that our plan at Mirador, and let me say straight away that the people down at the depot are doing a little concert, which would have delighted Stephen immensely. We, on the other hand, are trying to formulate something that will be a little bit more permanent. And John Henty, a very well-known character around town, an ex-BBC, John Henty has agreed to be the chairperson for this, but he will want our he would like, because he's very keen on memorials to people of some worth, and he is a member of, if not chairman of, the Max Miller Appreciation Society. And they had at one stage had a monument made to Max Miller, a statue. As he says, a statue is a statue is a statue. Who cares? Eventually. And it's sad, but he's right. And so he said a fitting tribute to Stephen Catlin would be that we have a rather bigger than life, larger than life watering can designed and sculpted, because Stephen was an exceptional mayor. You could see the mayor of this town with a trowel, making sure that the gardens, which make it so pretty, were well looked after, were watered. And as far as I'm aware, our so-called green people in charge at the moment don't do any of that. I take it back if they do. The one thing that we know hasn't carried through, that is Stephen's secret garden, which is the old Pinwell Lane, and which he turned into a paradise. And it runs between the back of All Saints Church, which is now an All Saints community centre, and the House of Friendship. And our plan is to have this watering can designed and built so it will sit in that grounds, the one that he so fastidiously built and was so very proud of, and that we will raise the funds each year to have a gardener look after it and make sure that it stays, it doesn't fall into disrepair, and it stays Stephen Catlin's secret garden for all to see and to enjoy. And if we can tie in something, I know that there is already a Lewis in Bloom scheme, but if we can tie in something to do with people being rewarded for putting plants in their garden, or perhaps community looking after a park, or something of the sort, so be it. That's what's going through our mind. The reason that I mentioned that, as I said, is Melissa became very friendly with Stephen, and she, of all people I know, will support what it is that we're planning to do. We haven't formally kicked it off, but we just started to say what we do plan, so that anybody who wishes to get involved in the committee and the planning stages of this can do so. And we don't expect John Henty to do a lot of this himself. He will be a figurehead. And we know that Lewis has many people who are excellent at organization, excellent at doing these things. And we at Mirador will support this particular way to pay tribute to him. And so it should be. He at one point, he put his hand in his own pocket to keep a little park going up on Western Road. after the county council tried to charge him for doing so. I mean, that's typical. That's just how silly some of these people can be. But that is what we're aiming towards. That's what we're looking at, what we're hoping to see. And is Stephen's memory will be perpetuated, but also it will be a practical thing to help do what he tried to do, and that is make Lewes florally beautiful. And to see that work carried on would be really well worthwhile. So that's what we've got in mind, and we will be inviting you to get in touch with us and to get involved in the next couple of weeks or so. We've already had a number of people who said that they want to get involved in this, and we shall be inviting them to be part of it. And because there's initial interest, but if others wish to take part, because the first step is to get the council. I think it's the town council. I don't think it's the district council. I think it's the town council, and that can be a trauma in itself. But since the district council have just given away a building worth £250,000 a year, I think that it would be churlish if the town council said no or tried to obstruct our idea in any way. And anyway, we will find a way to keep Stephen's memory going, as indeed we have, because we have got a program which we show fairly regularly on Stephen's Secret Garden. So that's the that's what we're aiming towards, and hopefully it's 10:29, and Melissa normally comes on bang on 10:30. She's a former journalist, very, very famous journalist in the States, I may say, very well known broadcaster. Very lucky that she's associated with us, and that she understands the discipline of the industry extremely well. And being on time is one of them. So I do expect her to pop up at any moment now, and we will see what we have to offer. Oh, just a reminder to some of the key things that have gone through our hands this week, and one particularly is our bank, Coutts Bank, owned by NatWest, 40% owned by us, the taxpayer, denied Nigel Farage the right to have an account with them, and eventually admitted that it was not economic, but it was political. And that in itself is frightening, really frightening. So that was the major story, and it carries on today with some of the press, the Fleet Street press, the written press, calling upon the BBC to apologise because their reporters got it wrong, and the bank to apologise because they should never have done something like this in the first place. And it's tragic and sad that we're getting getting such dreadful things enter into our I'm just looking to see whether we will need a little note from Melissa, but we haven't. So I assume that she's received our link, and that we will see her in a moment or two. And that should take place. The banks should decide what we should think is a worrying time, and it's a worrying time indeed. I just saw somebody come into the hotel who's involved with the Stephen Kathleen project. Whether I can catch him or not, I don't know. He hasn't sort of walked past the, but nonetheless, is I can't catch him. What a pity. He's disappeared out again. So he's obviously got meetings here, and now here we are. This the beauty is joining the beast, and good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Keith. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Now, shall I tell you what I've been talking about while we've been waiting for you?
Yes, while I pour my coffee, so that I'll be in a good mood when you tell me.
Right, okay. As this week, when John Henty was on, we discussed our memorial to Stephen Kathleen, and John has agreed to chair the little committee. The plan is to raise funds to have a giant watering can designed and to be placed in Stephen's secret garden, and that we will pay out of this fund, we will pay a gardener to keep it in pristine condition, the way that he kept it, because we've got a green council. And the one thing you can guarantee about green councils is that green doesn't mean anything to them when it comes to practicalities, and it's falling into disrepair, and we don't want to see that. It's got to be a properly a memorial for Stephen. Now, the second thing, though, that will please you is that there is a cinema restaurant complex here called the Depot. It's a bit of a stylized thing. But they also have a little concert hall, and they plan to have a concert in memory of Stephen as well. So all your good work, and I was just explaining to the viewers that you and I have known one another for a long time, that you came over here with Mirador, that you met Stephen, that you've formed a great attachment to him, and that you have been as much a driver in this memorial as anybody. So I thought that you would be interested to know that's moving forward.
Very good. I sadly won't be able to attend. I'm not actually going to be in the UK until August 4th, and I know the memorial's on August 2nd.
So, our memorial will actually be to suit you. I mean, I think our memorial will probably take several months to see to fruition, because we have to have the monument, if I want to call it that, designed and built, and also, as I said to people, we're going to have to get the town council to agree to us taking over the secret garden. That could take 10 years. Now, the other sad thing is, and I hope that Connor isn't listening, is not sad, but we're still well on track for his beer, but we can't do it to the time scale for his birthday. Mostly because the key people are on holiday. It's holiday time here, but it is going to happen, and it will happen before the end of the summer, and well before he goes off to fly his jets.
Very good. Very good. Good to hear.
So that's my good news for you. The bad news is, of course, as I'm sure that you've been following, what's been happening with our banks here, who have started to use political reasons for denying people bank accounts. And it's creating a great furore, to the point where some people are saying it ushered in a period of McCarthyism here. So that is the downside of the week, I'm afraid.
Right. Yeah, I was reading the article about Farage and his bank account. It seemed to imply, one article seemed to imply that he hadn't met the threshold of the account. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if it was just a regular checking account. But there are certain accounts, for example, in my firm, you have to have $5 million, or you're going to have to release you as a client. I don't know, because that's the kind of firm it is, but it's not a bank. We're not a bank, though. So that's the difference.
Even so, one would accept that, but the bank has admitted that is not the reason. And there is an internal memo that says that he met the threshold, and that in fact it's because of he doesn't share their values, and mostly it's to do with Brexit, because he's very outspoken about Brexit, as you know, and that from time to time he can be outspoken, and he's not everybody's cup of tea. But to me, he's always been straight and strong and true, as it were. And the bank has admitted that it really shouldn't have done what it has done.
Yeah, and my question is why now? It's not like this is anything new.
No, but I think actually you would appreciate more than most is that quite often when the top management changes, attitudes change.
Oh, is that what happened at that bank?
Well, there's a fairly new lady CEO of the parent bank, which is NatWest, and she was the one that was the driving force in getting rid of him, and she has admitted that it more or less is political. But not only that, but the BBC also are being urged to admit that their reporters suggested that it was the financial threshold, and that all they did was they.
Well, maybe that's where I got it from. Maybe that's where I
mean, it was used as a reason, and it's that whole thing is sources close to, but it seems as if their sources close to weren't close enough.
Well, I think you have to ask the definitive questions. Okay, he didn't meet what threshold? So how much, without define confidence, obviously, and their privacy concerns. What is your threshold, and what did he not meet? So let's say your threshold is $5 million. Well, he no longer has $5 million in the bank, so therefore he doesn't meet the threshold. So give me something definitive, and apparently the sources were unable to do so.
No, that's right, and they've admitted that that wasn't the driving force. I find it worrying. Strangely enough, as you know, we have a contributor, Liza Page, who is very adamant that some of our institutions and our establishment drive their own agenda to the detriment of the general public, and sometimes people say, she's way off base, but I must say that to some extent she seems to have hit the nail on the head with this one, and that there are people in power who are looking at their own ends, and that really frightens me and worries me, because this this television station, small though it is, has believed very strongly in free speech. And we've always said that anybody can have a voice on here as long as they don't libel and they are not obscene. So it goes right against our policies and philosophies. So you can accept the fact that we're upset.
So
They're coming to carry me away.
Is this a one-off?
No,
did this
well,
happen
now,
with any
I
other
mean,
clients?
one has to be very careful because social media, of course, jumps onto any bandwagon. But according to one report this morning in the paper, there are now 10,000 people on either Facebook or one of the other social medias now say that they've had the same experience. And in fact,
with that particular bank,
that they've been denied an account. Now, there are no details. It's just that they died again. However, Jeremy Hunt, our Chancellor, which is the second highest office in the land, he came out afterwards and sort of said, yeah, they got rid of me as well. Now, that could be on financial grounds. I don't know, but it's you have to be very careful when you get rid of a politician, whatever your grounds, because anybody is then going to say, no, it's politics. So they haven't been very discreet.
Jeremy needs to be forthright as to why that happened. Was it just, oh, well, they just let me go and with no explanation? Yeah. What's the explanation? There may be cases where the explanation is warranted.
He's a politician, my dear.
So every politician, every Tory now doesn't have a bank account?
No. What I'm saying is that as a matter of fact, we're also waging war here in this town, is that every politician only lets you know what he wants to let you know. After that, it all becomes very secret. And in fact, Stuart has been doing some very good work this week on, I think broadly you would know because of your association with Stephen, that our district council, Lewes Council, has been moved out of Lewes to Eastbourne, which seems to be a very stupid thing to do, but nonetheless, it happened. So the district offices, which take £250,000 each year to run, have been donated to a charity. Now, the charity is to do with Virginia Woolf, so it's not a charity that's looking after the poor or the sick or the elderly. So the idea of the taxpayer paying £250,000 towards this charity is beginning to upset people. And it turns out, it would appear that our council has not filed some of its income tax returns. So you start to scratch the surface and all sorts of things start to come pouring out.
And this is a smaller town. I mean, this is not, oh my goodness, that's crazy. Well, a lot of this would not have happened, would probably not have happened if Stephen were here or at least involved.
Stephen fought it.
Yes, he did.
As you know, and I actually plan to run because I don't throw anything away. I plan to run a little season and I ran one the other day. Stephen, for a good year before he became mayor, when it became impossible because of conflict of interest, had his own show called Kathleen's Corner, and he came up with all sorts of things. So I plan to run a little season of Kathleen's Corner with some of the things that he came up with, and then what we can do is we can see those things which were fulfilled and those things that weren't. So there's a can of worms that we've got going here. But that's what we should be. That's what we're all about. That's what we should be about.
Good. Very good.
Excellent. Right. Now, what's happening in New York?
Just working hard. What's happening in New York? I don't know what's happening in New York. I have to be honest with you, Keith. I go to work and it's still there. The buildings, I mean, there's a lot of construction going on in New York. So much construction, which I guess is a revitalization. But again, we're having those same issues with, if we want to turn to the economy, we're having those same issues with commercial real estate. Goldman Sachs just came out with their profit picture, and it's not good. They lost, what did they lose? About $1 billion, but it's a lot of it is commercial real estate bets. And the offices are empty, and now the holders of the commercial real estate are having some problems refinancing. You know, they're highly leveraged, and so they're in trouble. So we're starting to see the commercial real estate crumble. Although it's starting to crumble, I don't know how far it's going to crumble, but I know it's hurt Goldman Sachs. So we'll see. We're not. My firm is not as exposed.
Yeah.
My firm is not as exposed. Maybe
Right.
a little bit of I think in one of our funds maybe 8% exposure, but we've been able to make it up in other areas.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things about New York is it's a wonderfully vital city. Is if this real estate thing sort of goes south in any real way, will that sort of take some of the zest out of New York?
I don't know. You know, it's a new world. We have a new world. People can work remotely and get the job done. In fact, I'll say it. I do enjoy socializing with my colleagues and being there, but I don't get any work done when I'm there. I just don't. I looked over the years, and I'm like, you know, I got so much more work done during COVID and when I'm home. I just do. My colleagues, I love talking to my colleagues. Some of them are very loud and they're very humorous, and I enjoy hearing them. But when you have to concentrate on something deeply, I can't be there. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but we have to, corporate America, we all have to face this. We now have this ability to do this. It's like, you know, many years ago, decades ago, we weren't able to hop on a plane and fly across the pond. Now we can. So what are you going to do? All of a sudden say, well, no, you know, let's turn the clock back. Let's go back to horse and buggy. No, we can't. You know? So we have to cope with it. We have this great ability now to work online and fully remote. In fact, people in my firm are literally just moving away and just declaring that they're remote. They just love that, you know. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Maybe we ought to check some of the legal ramifications of that.
Yes. I mean, my concept of cities is that they should be as a humming, buzzing places, you know, exciting places. I mean, with all due respect to Lewes at the moment, it is, even though it's only small, it is not the vital place that I remember when I came here 25 years ago. It's creaking at the seams a little bit, and mostly because of the economy. The high street is dying. Not just here, high streets are dying right throughout the United Kingdom. And efforts to regenerate them haven't been particularly successful so far.
Right. I mean, they're competing. They're competing with online shopping.
Yes,
let's be honest.
Yeah,
you know, a lot of people don't want it. I happen to love going out shopping. I don't like online shopping. I can't. I have to try on shoes. I have to try on clothes. I want to be able to see the product I'm buying before I buy it. But you know, it's a trend. Everything's online.
Yes.
So.
But things do tend to sort of not stay static. I mean, I can remember. I can remember. It would be about 1958, because it was when I first came to North America. First came to Canada to live and go to university. And I remember talking to this chap, very interesting chap, and he said, you know, I've just been dealing with somebody who believes that we're going to have these big shops where people will come and help themselves and go to a till and check things out. Supermarkets. 1958, nobody knew what the hell a supermarket was, and were very suspicious of them. But we learned to live with supermarkets, and other things managed to fit in, and life went on. So I wonder whether, in fact, online will eventually settle down so that everybody lives with it, with these things.
Yeah, I think so. And I think those who are opening stores, you have to have something very interesting that's not online. So this could
Yes,
bring about some very good changes. I
yes,
love the smaller boutiques where you just cannot. I'd love to go back to where people were actually making clothes themselves or making, I don't know,
yeah,
ornaments, some homemade things would be lovely. You can't find that online unless you have an online business, certainly, but it would be
yeah.
so nice to have something more unique. So
Well, we
hopefully,
actually interviewed somebody, it was either last week or earlier this week, who has opened up a little shop here. They've come down from London and they make their own ceramics. And
nice.
he actually he's asked me to drop by and take a look, and I must do that. But that is an example of what you're talking about. But on top of that, what he does is he gets involved in the various art waves and art fairs that take place in the town, and he turns his shop into sort of an exhibition centre for a little while. It's only a tiny
Nice.
shop,
Oh, I
so
would
people
love, see,
can go in and see that sort of thing. Yeah.
that's lovely. That would be just lovely. What about Sarah? I haven't heard from her in a while. How's she doing with her art?
Well, we haven't heard from Sarah for a little while either, because she works for American Express, and I think that they've borne down a little bit, so that her time has been a bit limited. But we are actually, as you know, we're going to take a couple of weeks at the end of August, and then we're going to come back with our feet going 10 to the dozen, and I hope that I'll bring her back in September with because that was a very popular show, and she was very
Good.
very keen on New York art, of course.
Yeah, well, here's my question. So she works for American Express. I thought she was an art teacher.
No, well, yes and no. She does some private tutoring, but she spends most of her time when she's not working for American Express painting, and she's quite prolific, as you know. Strangely enough, you can actually go around Lewis and you say, I mean, for instance, in my barber's shop, I walked in the other day and I said, "Oh, you got Sarah Fitch Hayes?" Yes, he said, as her art is displayed all over the place. So she has to keep up with it.
Yeah,
uh,
that would be very sad because I would imagine that she's not doing art at American Express.
no, she's not. As a
And
matter of fact,
so it's almost like you have to take a job you don't like and, let go of what you love to do. That's very sad.
yes, it is, except that quite often when you look at the biographies of successful people, is that they all started off doing something which they didn't really want to do but had to while they formulated their own particular talent. I mean, you did. Look at, I mean, you became a huge media talent, and you started off sort of. Scraping around thinking about joining a choir, I think, or whatever.
Well, what I had originally wanted to be in music, but
That's right.
it's my father was telling me, it's too hard, don't do that, it's too difficult, be a journalist, it's easy. Really? So that's
Yeah.
what I ended up doing, but I ended up doing a job that I really loved. And that's the key. I did a job that I loved for many years. I was a teacher for 10 years. I loved that too. Right now, it's like a money job right now. You got to admit it. If your job is about money, your job is about money. But at the end of the day, if you've spent 30, 40 years at a job earning money and not doing what you love, that's sad.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree
So,
more. Incidentally, I should tell everybody that I only met your father remotely, but what a character he was.
yeah, he was a great guy. He's a really
Yeah,
great guy.
he was everybody's idea of a typical New Yorker.
New York Italian father. He was a quiet man. He was reserved. He was very elegant man. I mean, oh, you'd see him, he looked like a movie star.
Yeah.
And my mother was very elegant as well. So the two of them would just go out into to the town and oh gosh, what movie were they in, you know?
But because the real character is it Uncle Joe?
Oh, let's see, what do we have a lot of characters.
Yeah, no,
We have
he,
Uncle Bill.
yes,
Uncle
Uncle
Bill's
Bill.
still,
Uncle Bill, yes.
yeah, Uncle Bill. Uncle Bill. What can I say?
Yeah.
Nothing.
No, he was the epitome of what we think of as a typical New Yorker. It was
Yeah,
very, very.
very well, so then there's Billy, my cousin Billy, who's wonderful. And Bill is wonderful too. They're all wonderful. They just have they're very unique personalities. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. They're so much fun, and they're a wonderful family to be a part of.
Well, now you've carried on the tradition because you've got a very a lovely son who is very talented, and he is working for NHK, the Japanese television company. And actually, it's proving to be very good for him because he's being sent all over the place. So, who did he go and interview this week?
Well, I think he covered the United Nations this week, and I believe they covered. Well, they're doing a story on the coral reefs and how they're bleaching at very quick rates, and so they spoke to an expert on that. What are some of the other things? I know that they're doing a story on very interesting story on how parts of New York are actually sinking because they
Really?
weren't built. Yeah, they weren't built on bedrock. They were just. It was just built on fill. So there are parts like I think Brooklyn and Staten Island where the building load is too heavy, and so they're dealing with that, and not in Manhattan so much because they're built on bedrock. But yeah, so they're having to be very careful with buildings now. They're going to have to take some down. They're going to have to put some green space. So yeah, very fascinating. And then of course now we've got the sea level rise, which you can't deny that it's rising. And so we've got parts of New York City that will that's probably at some point will be underwater.
Yeah.
So yeah.
This is quite a worry. Is parts of the English coast also are threatened with
Right.
being underwater, and in fact, as you know, the area that we live in and you visited is it's got a lot of chalk cliffs, the White Cliffs of Dover, and
Right.
that in fact the sea tends to erode them as it rises, and they tumble into the ocean, and we have to warn people: don't go too near to the edge of a cliff because people like to picnic on them, and gaze out into the English Channel. And say, don't go too close because it's likely to give out from underneath you. So
Oh,
I hadn't realized that New York had got the same worry.
yeah, and certainly like states like Florida, big worry. There'll probably be parts of Florida that will literally be underwater. It will start to, start to fade. Parts of Louisiana are starting to have problems too. So yeah,
Right.
coastal areas are definitely threatened, and it's interesting because they're starting to. Our conservatives have always denied anything about climate change, anything about you know whatever. And so, but I heard this week that they've come out with a proposal to plant more trees, which is so shocking. I know it sounds ridiculous, but they not necessarily ridiculous, but not enough, to handle the problem. But the fact that they're even suggesting that is shocking. So
Mm.
even Republicans and more conservatives on our side are starting to wake up a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Well, of course, what's happening in Europe right now is, there's a debate as to whether it's global warming or not. But I mean, I think that in it was Greece or one of the Mediterranean countries had a temperature of 40 degrees the other day, and I mean that you could bake an apple pie in that.
We routinely have those temperatures now.
Do you really?
115, which I don't know what it is Celsius, more than 40.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting to know as well, because those temperatures are records from the time that records started in Europe. So, here we are horrified with stuff that you already experienced.
Yeah. Well, we're experiencing it, but more intensely because we have warmer climate. We're on a lower latitude. So yeah, it's just unbearable. It just truly is, and it's relentless. It's not just a one-off. It's relentless here. So yeah, I don't know what we're all going to do to wake up. I don't have answers to that. You'd have to ask Stuart, but I don't know. It's just that it's accelerated since the industrial revolution. So maybe we ought to take a look at the correlation. I don't know.
Well,
Is it causation? I don't know. But the reason why we don't want to do anything is because we don't want to change. And the big, huge corporations that spew all that out, whether it be China or they don't want to change. They don't want to stop. And that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Don't touch my profits. Don't touch my money. Let me do what I want to do. Okay. You'll be baking while you're doing what you want to do.
But
yeah.
Well, we may be a small voice, but we'll keep on at it on this program. Now, is your weekly summation of the thing that is close to your heart?
Yes, we've had a couple of situations where, let's take a look. State of Florida got in a lot of trouble because what they have been doing is they've been dealing with children with mental disabilities by just simply throwing them into institutions, nursing facilities, and forgetting about them, and not giving them the quality of life and not giving them the chance to live a good life. And so they've been cited for this. They're in trouble. State of South Carolina too. So a lot of the southern states you're starting to see, they have to start spending some money, and it's always about that. Well, so their idea is, okay, we've got a child with autism, or we've got a child with some mental illness. Let's just throw them in an institution as cheaply, and we'll forget about them, right? Can't do that. You can't do that. They're violating federal laws. So now we're going to actually have to spend some money to actually work to see how we can work with the children, put them in a community setting where they have the best chance of thriving. Nobody wants to be thrown in an institution because they have a problem. Do you imagine?
Yeah.
So
what ability to punish or use heavy persuasion on these people, these states that are breaking the law? What can be done to twist their arm?
Well, they're already starting to, because they were cited by our Justice Department as violating the federal law. They have to abide by federal law. Sorry. It's just the way it is. It's the Constitution.
But if they don't, are they fined or?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, right.
And the publicity is just terrible. Let's just throw children with problems, just throw them into a nursing home. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Maybe we ought to throw the governor into a nursing home because he's not doing such a good job.
Yes. Well, I mean, for a long time, I've always said it is even local authorities, for some of the things that they do to support homeless and so on and so forth, should actually go into some of these places that they put the homeless in. It's academic, if you like. It's academic, and it's got to be more practical. Yeah.
Right. So that's the trend that I'm starting to see, is different states are being cited for their the way they're treating people with disabilities, which is good. It's good that finally they have a voice, because they never did before. A lot of these federal laws took place, and a lot of those federal laws were put in place by the disabled activists. So,
right.
And those who help them, those who support them. So, but you have to be very careful, because a lot of those trends could end up hurting you. Okay. So we have to always be careful. Got to speak
Yeah.
up for those who are downtrodden, because we could end up being the ones who are in fact downtrodden. So
Yes. I mean, are we? This legislation that you're talking about, is it recent? Fairly
no,
recent, mostly.
it was a couple of decades ago, Americans with Disabilities Act, where you have
But
to
it's
do the best you can.
right.
Basically, you have to do the best you can to accommodate people with disabilities, just
Right.
like we would do the best we can to accommodate the rest of us.
But is it encouraging that the action is now being taken to force
Yes,
state governments, I suppose, are they?
state
Into act?
governments. Yes, it's fantastic, because then now you're supporting the parents of those children who are struggling to get their children out of these institutions, and into a better setting. What parent wouldn't want that for their child? No
Yeah.
parent wants their child to be locked up the way, and that was the way it was in the 1950s and 60s. And then, in fact, a lot of changes came about. There was a documentary about this institution in New York called Willowbrook. The absolutely horrendous conditions that these people were living in. And there was an investigative reporter, Geraldo Rivera, actually, he's not a famous commentator, who he went in and he investigated it and got video and it was like a prison. It was horrible, horrible. And that all came to light, and they ended up shutting down that institution. And New York really had it was quite a reckoning for New York. So this is why New York is ahead of the game, because they got cited early. So now
You
now we're looking at Florida, who's always behind the times
got-
anyway. Um, and now Florida and the Carolinas, it's a lot of the states that don't have state income tax. Now they have to fork over some money. Gee, where's that going to come from? Oh, let's institute new fees somewhere. So yeah, and
yeah,
Florida's also having trouble with insuring homeowners for hurricanes. Some of these big insurance companies are pulling out of the state. They'll go bankrupt if, well, that's what they say, if they have another hurricane. So a lot of homeowners cannot get hurricane insurance. So guess what's going to happen? The state's going to have to do that.
yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, America is a great big sprawling country. We tend to think of New York and
yeah,
Boston and Los Angeles and so on.
oh,
Is
huge.
how advanced or otherwise with this sort of legislation are the interior? Let me put it as the interior. The Great Plains states and so on and so forth. Are they advancing at any sort of rate of knots, or are they still lost in the wilderness?
Well, I think they have a much lower population, so you probably don't hear a lot about it. It gets forgotten. So very populated states like Florida or New York, um, they tend to get the publicity. So
Right.
there may be some things going on, but we don't know just yet. So you have to have people complaining about it. You have to have activists out there in
Yeah.
order to get any action taken.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating work that you're doing, and going to into. When do you actually go back to university?
I'm going to be going back in January.
Ah,
So
right.
and studying the legal aspects of it. So really diving into that federal legislation and how it affects the states and policy at the state level. So that'll be very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll start back in January.
Okay. Okay. Now, just one last question: is what is the feeling about? You got an election year next year. Is it next year?
Yes.
Yes. What's the feeling about the current running of the candidates?
What a mess. What a mess. There's no leadership. It's what's happening. It's awful. It's just gone downhill so fast in the last couple of decades. It's just horrendous. It's like,
Yeah.
what's going on? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's become so polarized and everybody's so angry at each other. Like, and it's all about, oh, I'm going to make statements that are going to make it on Twitter. It's like, so let me be as outrageous as I possibly can.
Hmm.
It's ridiculous. Instead of being responsible and doing something good.
Yeah. Yeah. I must say that's global, not just the United States. But,
Yeah. So a lot of it, that's what it is. It's not actually digging in and doing the hard work for the people. It's, oh,
yeah.
I'm a celebrity now. I'm going to say outrageous things so I'll get attention. It's so childish. Like, grow up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, as you point out, I mean, America is the biggest economy still in the world. So, as a consequence, everybody looks to it, and
Don't look over here. Don't look over here.
you can't look at you. I wonder where we can look.
Yeah.
Melissa, a joy as always, and as always, we've gone well over our time because we've enjoyed talking, and we'll be in touch with you next week, and
Okay.
we'll keep you in touch with the Stevens project, and we'll look forward to having you on Mirador next Friday.
Very good. Bye, everybody. Have a great week.
Toodles.
Toodles.
Melissa Conti from New York, very plain speaking, and it really is. If we think that everything is hunky dory abroad, think again. Think again. What a week! What a week it's been. We'll see you Monday morning, and then we'll see what on earth is happening here in the UK, as well as what's happening elsewhere in the world. I think, in some ways, God help us, unless we help ourselves. Toodle pip.